So I figured out this morning as I'm releasing, and sometimes it's painful because it's energy that really just gets to the deep caverns of the 9 circles of hell. That's what your intestines are the 9 circles of hell. All of Dante's Inferno is allegory. It is allegory about the alimentary canal. Okay, and so are wormholes, black holes, all that stuff. I mean, I know I've written about that before, and am I going to add that to my book? Because that was information from a couple of years ago. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I might put it in the back of the book. I don't know. That's a lot for me to edit too. And is it really pertinent? But I'll think about that. But there has to be the front story for me to develop. And then there's the back story that could be all speculation. But really, what is the point of my book is to, well, there's a lot of points to my book. There's so many points to it. So I have to narrow it down. All right. And so anyways, there's a lot of thinking. I have to do another book later on, which I will. I'm going to be doing another book later on, but it's not going to be like what I thought it would be. They'll be unmasking the beast, but it won't be so much on my life. It'll be sort of loosely based on my life, but not really. But it will, there's certain things that you'll see in society that you'll recognize. So anyways, release is painful. Just so you know that, okay? Hi, everybody. Release is painful, With any growth, there's always release. Okay, so when you're growing up, you're not going to have the same friends. And if you do, then you're not really growing up. You're staying the same. That's why I'm saying those that go to their high school reunions and those have the same friends for their whole life, they're still children. I have released so many people from my past lives, and I continuously keep evolving. Okay? Some people will stick around because they're evolving with me. Let me tell you, my husband, he definitely stuck around, and he's evolving with me as much as he resisted. But he is evolving with me because he's still with me. I'm still with him. My dog is still with me. Some of you are still with me. So you're evolving with me. Okay? And so there'll be those that will stick around while you're evolving, but you weren't around back in the beginning, way back when I was growing up. You weren't around when I was in high school. You're around during this process of where I'm at. Will you stick around the next 10 years? Yeah, but you'll still be evolving yourself. So can you stick around and evolve simultaneously? Well, as long as you're not joined at the hip, unless you're working on a project together, okay? And so, you guys will have your own lives, doing whatever with your lives. We'll say hi to each other. Maybe I'll do some stuff on Facebook, whatever. You guys will, will do your thing. And then if paths have to cross at a closer proximity because of projects we're working on, great. But that's the ebb and flow of growth and release. Sometimes you do have to release yourself from something that's growing too fast because it's too much energy. That's why not everybody stayed with me in the JJ world, because I was growing too fast. Not as in employees, but evolving so fast that the changes were making their head spin, and they were still stuck in 1985, and I'm like in 2022. Okay? And so anyway, so release is painful, and with any growth, there is release. And some of you are going to have to shed the people that are holding you back, whoever they are. And so anyways, I was thinking about the whole thing with germ theory and stuff, and I saw somebody post about it, and it was an activist post that was trying to discredit that theory and advocate for their activism against food and therapies. Now, that's like taking on subprime loans and good loans. You're packaging up something that shouldn't be packaged up. You have to understand what food is. You have to understand what therapies are and what they do. All therapy should only be temporary. It never should be something on a continuous basis. What do you mean temporary? Because maybe you just need some help during the process of something, but you never turn to that therapy ever again or anything like it. Because growing up is painful. Parents are going to use what they have to use to get by, but at some point, they're going to have to train their kids and themselves to deal with the evolution of taking on other people's germs. Why? Because that's an upgrade. But when you're taking on antibiotics, that's not an upgrade, that's a downgrade, and your body then has to then be forced to upgrade. But it may not have what it takes to do it if those antibiotics are used on a continuous basis. And that's the same thing with therapies. You keep using so many therapies, I don't care what form they're in, you will train the body not to evolve. You'll train the body to rely on something else out there that isn't food, but is a therapy to program you to stay stagnant, stuck, and not evolve. Okay? So when I saw that post, of course I wasn't going to go and refute and say anything on that person's page. You know, that's not what I'm going to do. But I will take the information and I will develop my own thought process. That's how you guys, when you see something that you don't agree with, let me tell you, when you start writing, not just speaking, okay, speaking is good, but when you start writing, you will really develop a whole new world. I'm telling you, I get so many new ideas when I'm just writing and when I'm speaking. That's why I bring in all the 5 senses. That's why I encourage you guys to not only speak, but to also write, because that is using your body, mind, and spirit in your 5 senses in anything that you're doing. And then you're going to have a different way, a better way, a new way of saying something. And when you see something that's said on your Facebook, that is one of your friends and family or acquaintance, and you don't agree with it, but you're not going to go and try to play that game of, I'm going to troll you, then you will write something in response to it without saying anyone's name, but you will then put your spin on it. Maybe they'll see it, maybe they won't. But that's not your intention, is for them to see it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if they do happen to see it, and they're like, are you talking about me? And they're like, well, you're one of 100,000 people who think the same way. Do you really think I'm talking about you? When you really are. But you can say yes and be honest, or you can be like, you know, it's none of your business who I'm talking about. I just see it all over Facebook. It just depends on your relationship with them. If they think you're talking about them, then they'll be like, oh, whatever, if that kind of person. But if somebody has to ask you if you're talking about them, then you know they're feeling guilty and they're going to go and try to defend themselves. I've had that happen where I'm talking about somebody on Facebook and only they know, and people who know what they know. And so they'll go and message me and be like, are you talking about me? And trying to find out what I'm saying or if I'm intending. And I just said, yeah. She's like, and I'm like, you know it was about you. Shut the hell up. Stop with this freaking playing, you know. And then it went into the whole defense of, well, your way of looking at it is not correct. You know, then and so you don't really want to go there, but sometimes you do have to go there. Sometimes you have to bring up issues that need to be dealt with. And that may be, you know, but when it comes to something like this, like germ theory, no, you don't need to go there. People, just leave it alone if they want to confront you. Okay? And so if you don't understand germ theory, then you will think everything is poison and you'll starve yourself, and that's the point. Because there are so many campaigns to depopulate people, but you can't just force people. Like, you can't just take an antibiotic all the time and destroy yourself. You can't, you know, take a bunch of salt water and purge all the time, right? You know, because people will be immune to that, or it'll be a temporary cure. And you can't just go and poison people, like mass poison. There's slow ways of doing it where you have a chance to recover and develop an immunity and a strength, but you can't just do what we did in 1945. Just like you can't go and take in a bunch of stuff like binders and detoxes all the time like they're doing in the medical holistic. Because that is antibiotic that will destroy you faster. And so how do you release people? Well, you have to psychologically opt them. Just like your body, when they're doing all the therapies, they're psychologically messing with your cells. I got a bug bite here. This is what I hit yesterday when I was smacking. Like right here and then right here, because there were bugs in my ear. Okay? And so when you're thinking that germ theory is like not credible, and you're thinking that there's poison in all the therapies and germ theory, not germ therapy. But if you're thinking that germ theory is not credible, and then you're thinking that there's poison in all the therapies and in all the food supply, then guess what you're going to do? You're not going to eat food. Of course, you're not going to do any therapies, but you're going to be eating like maybe one or two things that your body needs a whole bunch of because you have a bunch of demons in your body, and you also have to build up your own cells and stuff. And so then these are people who are so skinny or they're so obese. Okay, and so if you don't understand germ theory, then you will think everything is poison and you'll starve yourself, and that's the point. That's psychological operations, and it's all over the activist world. Germs are new growth that will evolve you if you feed it and understand it. Now, let me cycle back to the activist world. Do you know that back in the 1960s and 70s, that was all contrived? That was the CIA, MK Ultra, LSD, developing religions and cults. That was a psychological operation. Okay? And so if you are taking an activist stance, I don't care what it is, it's all psychological operations. Yes, there's elements of truth to human experimentation. Absolutely. They haven't denied it. And it has happened back in the 1930s. I mean, you know, Jimmy Savile and all that stuff. He did some horrible stuff. Epstein did some horrible stuff. There's a lot of people that they've let through the crowd, or they let do whatever for many, many years for whatever reason. Okay? They did some horrible stuff. And then now it's all over Netflix, right? And different stories. But it's also a lesson. It's also a lesson to those that have witnessed it. But if you happen to have a genetic line that really just doesn't want to stay around and you're all dying and reproducing, that will be a lesson that will be learned over and over and over again. The people who are dying and reproducing will be exploited. And you can't stop that. You can't. Okay? And so just know that there has been bad stuff that happened in the past, but you don't need to live from that. But there's also been some amazing things. And that, you know, as far as the Queen, I know some of you are like not really thrilled with the Queen, that she's done some horrible stuff. So we've heard, and she's allowed stuff to happen. And yeah, we've heard that too. We know there's also, how do you control population? There are those that are going to be expendable, and then there are those that are not. And it's, you know, eugenics and all that other shit. And it's evil on one end, but then it has to save humanity on the other end. You know, how do you reconcile with that? Well, there's no really way to reconcile. It's hard to deal with watching other people pass away that don't even know it. It's hard to watch someone being experimented upon and they don't even know it. And you want to get mad at those that are exploiting them, but you can't. I mean, you can, but it's a waste of energy. You have to speak out about so many things, but you don't try to convert anyone into changing their lifestyle and belief system and all that. Let them do what they do. You've given them the choice, and if they still choose to go down that road, then that's their choice. But see, we have to give people the choice. We have to speak out. We have to write. We have to say shit. We have to be intelligent. There's ways. I mean, let me tell you, I know I've said many things that come off very emotional, and I swear a lot. So that does turn off certain people. Well, fine. That's fine. Maybe that was meant to happen subconsciously. That if you can't handle raw emotion, you can't handle me swearing and inflecting and all that stuff, then you weren't meant for this, because you can't handle people where they're at. Because I'll tell you, some of you guys are going to be in certain places where we're going to be like, whoa, that's really intense. But you know, that's where you're at. And eventually you hope that in the next year or so, it won't be as intense. It'll be less intense. And every single year is whatever, that's less intense. And so we cut people some slack, give them the benefit of the doubt, let them express, let them do what they got to do. And then hopefully down the road, when they finally get everything figured out and resolved, they don't have to be so aggressive. And I know I'm the same way right now. I'm really aggressive because I'm still taking on new information. To me, information I'm putting together, discovering, and you know, I have a little residual anger around it. Okay, then you're gonna have to deal with where I'm at the time. In maybe like 5 years, 5 years, it'll be a totally different Jillian. But right now, this is where I'm at. Okay, so just activists, just remember, all activism is a psychological operation, and it's based off of elements of truth and facts. But I mean, you know, am I going to hold everything against the way I was raised? You know, no, they did an amazing job. As much as it was really fucking insane, they did an amazing job with me, because look where I ended up. It took a lot of myself to pull myself up by my own bootstraps, but if I didn't have that kind of background where I had to struggle, like really struggle and survive, I probably wouldn't have done this. And so even though it's a lot of stress and anger and hatred, I guess, it also built the character. Character was built from all of that. And so then you really can't be mad. You survived it. If you don't survive your childhood or the past of history, it means that you weren't meant to, because you didn't have what it takes. You didn't have what it takes to survive really aggressive changes in our society, aggressive elements. Okay, so those that survive, count your fucking blessings and don't keep going back to the past. Keep developing the future and the present. Okay, and that yesterday was really trippy, because when I finally put it all together with the antibiotics, but not just the antibiotics, it's then realizing that there's a difference in antibiotics and probiotics when it comes to germ theory. Okay, and it's how you respond. You take so many antibiotics, yeah, it's going to destroy you, but it also, you're going to convert that energy. So when you're taking an antibiotic that is a therapy or something in the medical holistic, it's going to change your DNA. It's going to cause you also to spit out a new viral baby that is a new prototype of whatever. Someone else is going to catch that, convert it, and it may cause an upset of homeostasis, a sickness, or it may cause like nothing at all until way later on. And then that person takes that information, converts it, spits out another new viral baby, and that's where the back-to-back pandemics are relative to the initial antibiotic that was introduced that caused such an aggressive reaction as it worked through the population. Because when any new entity works through new organisms to them, it will cause like a movement or energy, and that energy picks up speed, and that's the orders of magnitude. That's how viruses get so strong, and then there is finally an equilibrium. But then the resurgence, like I said yesterday or the day before, the resurgence of any pandemics is because of then new therapies that then go and resurge and convert that energy into a new entity that then will work through the population yet again. And that's why cold and flu season has always been such an aggressive season, and also allergy season is such an aggressive season because of all of that protein conversion that is like mini pandemics or cold and flu season. Okay, so germs are new growth that will evolve. Oh, that's right, hold on. And that's why it's so prophetic yesterday, because I figured that out, and then the queen passed away. Okay, and that was really weird to see those two juxtaposition. It was like almost as if it was planned. And I'm telling you, my shit isn't planned. I just think of these things. Things happen, energy happens, and it actually was highly energetic. Okay, so the queen passed away. There's rainbows over there that happened right when she passed, double rainbows. And then there's a lot of energy in the atmosphere. My dog's feeling it. Her ears were hot yesterday. She was shaking her head a little bit, putting her face in the couch, which means she probably had a headache or something. Poor thing. And so, you know, she's going through her own upgrades and all that stuff. Okay, so there's a lot of energy yesterday. And now we're nearing 9/11. It's now 9/9. What is it? 246. So it's 222, 2022, 999, 666, 999. You figured. Today's Friday too, right? It's all it's all Jewish mysticism. Okay, so germs are new growth that will evolve you if you don't feed it and understand it. Your body must also align with it and release the excess. Okay, so the thing with probiotics is, like, when I'm drinking milk, I'm going to convert those proteins into more proteins, and so it replicates. And so if I have more life than death in my body, then those proteins will convert to life, lengthen the telomeres, and then the proteins will also help sustain my immune system. So when I am around germs and things that I've already been exposed to, I won't have such an aggressive response because I already have the DNA and it's friendly. When something is not friendly, it's because it's new and then I have to go and assimilate to it. That's what adaptation is when your body is friendly to the environment and the environment is friendly to the body. It's like going into a crowd of people that you know. Everyone's saying ho, like hey, ho, ho, hey, you know, when you go into like Cheers, a bar, and everyone's waving and laughing. But if you go into a bar, you know, a biker bar, and you happen to not be a biker, and you walk into that place, and they're just like, who the hell is this? You're a foreign entity, and they're all going to be like, is this a cop? Is this whatever? Until you figure out how to find a common ground, right? You don't you don't try to be totally antagonistic if you don't like bikers. Okay, so when you walk into any kind of crowd, you assimilate. If you can't assimilate, then the crowd will notice that you're a little bit different, and they're going to treat you as such. They're going to either destroy you, or you're going to have to find a way to really sell yourself so you can assimilate with them. And so I never really did that. I was always really fucking different. I didn't assimilate anywhere. Okay, and that's a pathogen. A pathogen is something that hasn't been assimilated to, and it will cause energy. But pathogens can be amazing. They can be evolutionary, and they can really innovate. But pathogens also can destroy if you don't know how to respond to that new energy. Okay? And so when you're drinking milk and you're developing mucus proteins, that's going to enhance your telomeres. You're probably going to mucus up too, because your body is going to be armed to release. So when you're mucusing up from a probiotic, it's because your body was replicating, and it had the energy and the proteins and all the arsenal to now release stuff that is poisonous. That's in your body. It's poisonous. That needs to be released. And sometimes you'll have to take a shit. Sometimes when people get lactose intolerance, it's not that they're intolerant to lactose. It's that their body was armed finally to release the fucking demons in their colon, but they don't want to feel the energy. Because I'll tell you, release is painful. Remember when I was drinking so many lattes, you know, back in the 1990s, and I'm going drinking my whole latte or mocha, you know, mocha Valencia, sitting in Starbucks, and I don't have to run to the bathroom and just dump out a whole bunch of shit. I was just like, fuck, man, that was just insane. And I was like, am I getting sick? Is this poison? I mean, I didn't know what the hell to think, because I didn't know what milk actually was doing for me. And so that's how people mischaracterize the energy of milk and probiotics and mucus. And so then they don't want to have any mucus, right? Then they're mischaracterizing mucus so much where they're taking Mucinex, they're taking NyQuil, they're taking all these things that keep it inside. And so while, yes, you may have some growth, you also have things working against you. There's antibodies that are working against you. You're supposed to have a few antibodies in your body to protect you. But again, too much protection will then destroy you. It turns into the monster. Okay, so when you have so many antibodies in you that's eating away, then your body is trying to develop growth. And so there's a war inside. And that is the feelings of energy. And so when your body's trying to release, like through your lymph nodes, and you get these rashes, and you get all these different growths, and you get the feelings of energy and symptoms and pain, people are like, I don't want to feel it, and they're taking everything to stop it. Then they're stopping their body from releasing because they don't want to feel it, but that energy that the body's trying to release was working against it inside. And so the whole medical holistic system is not about helping people in the long run. It's keeping them working. It's keeping them in the game out there. But eventually, all the energy that's trapped inside is going to work against you. And it has. People have hormonal imbalances. They're either blowing up so much, or they are looking like the crypt keeper. They're aging exponentially every fucking year. Every year. But oh, that's supposed to happen. Well, okay. That's what you were told. Does it mean it was supposed to happen? That was the simulation prior to, hell, I don't know, for a long ass time. Now the simulation is changing. Now, actually, with the JJ world, we're developing a whole new simulation and still merging in with the old, because we know we need to have a slave class that wants to just have their shortened lifespan and get all the pleasures and get the money and travel and do whatever. Hey, have a great life and still do their job, keep the infrastructure going. But it also there must be an innovative class. There must be a leader class. I don't care if my leaders live in a 10,000 square foot house with 5,000 servants and a bunch of armed guards, a bunch of iron gates, and houses in the country. I could give a shit, because I could easily go into the country and sit out on the hillside and pretend I have a 10,000 square foot house. I have to manage a 5,000, nannies and whatever. That's a lot of actual responsibility. To be a rich person, that's a lot of responsibility that I really don't want to have. To be relatively okay, even well off, you have to really watch your shit, because there's always parasites trying to get in and take. So being where I'm at with some money in the bank and having a roof over my head and food to eat and a little bit of entertainment and my ability to go and innovate, this is the perfect life for me. If I have a little bit more than that, okay, fine. But that too much, it can be, then it can jade you and make you complacent. But too little can make you struggle, and then you're just surviving, you're not innovating. So there's got to be a happy medium. But when you have so much money, and it means when you have so much money, you have a lot of responsibility, not just in taking care of the money and managing it correctly, but those who are giving you the money, because you don't just get money for nothing, right? You have employees, you have products, you have so many things that you have to be responsible for and watch out for and take care of. Like my husband's company, the guy that runs it, man, he has to take care of all those employees and deal with all the vendors and manage that whole ship. That's a lot of fucking work. He should get paid for all that. He should be fucking rich and live in a house on the hill in the middle of nowhere or whatever. Because that's a lot of fucking responsibility. Do I necessarily want that? No, not really. I like my freedom. So even having money can keep you trapped. Just remember that. It's not, let me tell you, the grass isn't always greener over there. Because when you finally do get the money, and then you have to manage it. And you have to watch out for all the people that want what you have. And then people do kill for money. They really do. And so you got to watch out for that. So let me tell you, where I'm at is perfectly fine. I don't need a lot and I don't need too little. Okay, so anyways, I got off on a tangent there. But yeah, that's the thing with probiotics and antibiotics. You really have to, probiotics will develop the proteins. That's why you don't really want to turn to antibiotics. I mean, and antibiotics mean like really spicy food. Like I will not eat anything highly spicy. Now, occasionally, once in a while, I'll have something a little bit spicy if I go like every couple months, but it's not an everyday thing. Some cultures, they eat spicy food every single day, every day, because it's part of their mainstay. It's part of whatever. Because to them, that is alkaline. That keeps them cured for a certain amount of time. And then you see how skinny people are, some cultures are, when they're eating that much spicy food on a daily basis. Some can hold on to the fat, and those are the ones that maybe have more money, okay, that take on the milk and the yogurts and all that. But then the ones that are in more of the slave class, not only are they starving, but they're probably taking a lot of spices to keep them cured. I can see how the spice trade was used to not only flavor food, but also to keep the slave class in a certain level for a certain amount of time. And then when they keep reproducing, their children will then take their parents' place. That's an insurance to keep the slave class going when they keep reproducing. That's the slave trade. And that's not right, but that's the physics behind the slave trade and how the food was developed, and why I'm thinking, this is just my speculation, why some foods are super freaking spicy. And from that comes high proliferation of people. What do you call it? Rampant reproduction. And so, so there are many campaigns that will starve people who choose not to understand the different thought processes when you think the food supply, the air, and everything is poison. There's no discernment between food and therapies, and you'll starve your children and yourself through many psychological operations. So food is not poisonous, it just needs to be understood, and balance is everything. Okay? And so you have to understand food, and you have to understand spices. And that's why I drink a lot of milk. My husband drinks a lot of milk. He drinks so much, that's why he has strong bones. And milk and meat and cheese and eggs and all that stuff. So the germ theory of disease is the currently accepted scientific theory for many diseases. It states that microorganisms known as pathogens or germs can lead to disease. These small organisms, too small to be seen without magnification, invade humans, other animals, and other living hosts. And that's just upgrades. But if you don't know how to respond to that upgrade, you'll call it a pathogen. But that is viruses. That's the DNA programming from somebody else that was released because it was antibiotic and the body is probiotic, and the person coughed because it took on the information and released whatever excess that it didn't need. Somebody else picked it up and will go through the same energy conversion, release, take on, retain, release, retain, release. And so you see that in every single person in a crowded room. And that's why people do get, or they test positive for stuff, because they took on a programming they weren't aware of and didn't know how to respond to. And so that continuous retention and release is the pandemic. And I got to write that down. Hold on. Oh my gosh. Well, I already said it. I know I have a pen. Oh, here we go. Retention and release, and that's exponentially, is pandemic. Okay. So pathogen is how you characterize stuff. Nothing is a pathogen when it comes from people. It's only a pathogen because you characterize that because you don't want to feel, you don't want to be, you wanted to be cured. You didn't want to evolve. Okay? And so that's why people take in the different therapies, because then their body is protected. And so when they're around someone that has that kind of pathogen, their body's already assimilated to it and they won't have that response. But like anything, they're not releasing at the level that they need to. And so all those antibodies that they get exposed to, which will be no different than a person who doesn't do any therapy, they get exposed to all the different germs from people, and they're still going to have to build up antibodies in their body. And if they're not releasing, a person who is therapized or not therapized, if the release process sucks, okay, then they're going to have issues no matter what. But I'm not taking on anyone's antibiotics. I'm just not, as far as therapies. Maybe it's okay for a baby or someone that's really immunocompromised, and then they finally build themselves up where they don't need any more therapies and they understand how to deal with the process. But still, like anything, babies will have to do what they have to do. But as they get older and are aware enough and can be taught how to release, okay, and be taught and then strengthen their own immune system without the help of something else, that's fine. But as a baby, do what you got to do. Not every parent gets all the different whatever therapies. That's fine. The baby still turned out fine. Some, it just depends. If the baby's that immunocompromised, they may need help coming into the world. And they may have a chance later on to really become whole again if the parent is that aware. And so there's a way to mix in the medical, holistic, and the JJ world for a short amount of time. But the JJ world, you don't want to rely on the medical, holistic. It should only be when you're transitioning from one world into another. That both those worlds can simultaneously coexist for a minute. But then eventually you're going to have to get away. You're either going to have to choose. You stay in the medical world, in the holistic world, and die with everybody else eventually. Or you're in the JJ world and you're constantly upgrading. But there is a coexistence for a short amount of time between the JJ world and the medical world. And that's what I need to make sure I say. Because I don't want to come off as biased, but there's got to be a point where you have to choose. When you're at that crossroads where you don't really need the medical holistic system unless you're in a car accident. Well, you don't need the medical system unless you're in a car accident. Then you will choose, which you'll choose whatever direction. But there's got to be a point where those two can come together and then diverge, and you make that choice. And that's something I have to say in my book, that, yeah, do what you got to do as a baby. If your doctor recommends that the baby gets all this and all that, fine. Okay. But if, but if a person just doesn't do something because they were told by friends and family, well, are you going to give that baby a chance to survive, even if it seems like they'll get a reaction from whatever therapies? So that's the thing, is that you guys have to figure that out. And that's a choice for everybody. Okay? Okay. Yeah. Some crazy shit on Facebook. Who are these people? Oh. All right. Sorry. Anyways. Let me get back to where I was. In the morning, I'm releasing a bunch of stuff. So I know I'm all mucusy in the morning, so sorry about that. Okay. So, all new growth is evolutionary, but antibiotics is what causes exponential growth because you're destroying it and the body's trying to recover. Okay, so when you're taking so many antibiotics and you're attacking your body's ability to evolve and all of that, and you're kind of destroying the body's, whatever, eventually it will cause exponential growth. Maybe not right away, but when you're in deficit and you have those proteins that are antibiotic that are protecting you from everything, right? Then eventually it will be cancer and it'll be exponential. And that's when people freak out. And those B cells get crazy and it becomes painful because the body's releasing and is trying to grow at the same time. It's trying to release the old world and bring in the new world. And that new world, you may not be ready for it, and it's very, very painful. And that's where people get crazy with the cancer. Because cancer really, when you think about cancer, is not bad. Yeah, it's immature B cells, but they do want to mature. But you have to feed it. You have to feed cancer. And then you also have to release. You have to go and blow your nose. Yes, salt can be a cure, but cures are temporary. You're not supposed to be cured. That's why those that are in my group that were using the J juice and were in remission, okay, that's great. You got a little bit of relief, but really, did it really help them? Because now they're going to think any kind of pain is going to be their cancer coming back, and they're not going to be able to handle it, and they'll keep trying to cure it, and then they're dead later on at some point. But I don't want people thinking that the salt and the J juice was poisonous. It could also be used as a cure, but cures are really temporary, and they don't help the person in the long run, even in the short run. If you're going to use a cure, you might as well just go into the medical system, because they'll have so many different antibiotics for you to use that once one antibiotic or once one neutralizing force like salt wears off, then you can go back and find other poison in there and use to stop the energy. And so if you really want to see a remission and stop your cancer, then you just go into the medical system. But if you want to mature those B cell lymphomas, you want to mature all those cells that are the immature B cell stuff, then you have to feed it and release. Okay? And so all new growth is evolutionary, but antibiotics will cause exponential growth because you're destroying it and the body is trying to recover. And that's what cancer is. It's the recovering process people do not understand. And so they both can produce growth. Okay, so you must understand the difference between probiotic and antibiotic. So antibiotic eats away at you and then produces all these little immature B cell babies because it's in a probiotic body, and there's fornication going on, which is all those little children running you, and you have to mature those children. If you do not mature the children in your body, they will be the scourge of our society. They will be the ones that are destroying everything in our society. And that's why they said in the Vampire Diaries, or even in Twilight and Breaking Dawn, that you're not supposed to have a baby in their little areas because babies wreak havoc. The vampires are trying to assimilate to all the humans. And so when what's her name, I forget her name, was having a baby, a hybrid baby, a human and a vampire, and they're like, oh my God. And then all the council was like, you're not supposed to do that, right? Because babies are out of control. But they're like, no, this is a hybrid baby. This is not a vampire baby. This is a hybrid baby. She'll be good and all that. They were trying, And so that was the whole point of the Twilight and Breaking Dawn. Okay, and then you have the werewolves and Team Jacob and Team whatever the hell that guy. They're both fine. All right, and so that's the thing, is cancer is just a bunch of immature children trying to grow. Okay, and so B cell lymphoma, all the different diseases, are the children replicating, and they need to be fed, and and the excess needs to be released and set free. But no, what the medical holistic system is doing is attacking the children. Oncology is attacking the children. And that's, wow, that was such a revelation. That's like, holy shit. Oh my God. I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. This is a long process, guys. This development is a long process of just discovering and discovering and discovering. So they both can produce growth. It's the kind of growth that's why it's painful is the difference, okay? So why does milk make you develop mucus? Because it's probiotic, not antibiotic. Once it hits your chemistry, the bacteria start replicating very quickly. When you bring something antibiotic in, it will develop new viral babies that need to finally fucking grow up. But then that's a lot of, it's like having children on a constant basis. Eventually you want your kids to grow up because it's a lot to take care of children. It is such a lot to take care of children. So when you're constantly bringing antibiotics into your body on a probiotic body, which is you're developing new viral babies that do exponentially replicate. And it's like being pregnant all the time. You know, every 9 months you're pregnant. And then it's not even just having one baby. It's like you're pregnant and you're having like 50 babies all at once. It's like having a litter of freaking children. That's really what antibiotics does. It develops litters of proteins that you have to deal with, the children that are out of control, that aren't mature, and so they just wreak havoc. They just go everywhere. They haven't been guided. They haven't been programmed. And so how do they get programmed? Through the trauma, through all the trauma-based programming. And then you're watching TV, and you're on video games, or you're reading certain books that will influence you. Then those children get influenced. Look at the kids that are watching all the violence, and they become violent. That's exactly what happens when you're taking antibiotics and then you're being programmed by society, by your specific community. That's the whole trauma-based programming, children. That's why the 80s and 90s is about programming children, revering children, worshiping children, programming children. And then they turn out to be the adults that was intentionally programmed to be whatever it was. And who knows what comes out of that? Some turn out to be serial killers, others turn out to be sex bombs, others turn out to be intellectuals, others turn out to be who the hell knows. You see it in our society, how people are programmed from when they were a child, from the antibiotics, from then their parents programming them because they took information from Dr. Phil or something, or any of those TV doctors, Dr. Spock, Dr. Ruth, okay? And so now you get it. Now I fucking get it. Holy shit. That's what it takes. It takes talking. It takes talking, it takes writing, it takes, holy shit. I don't even, I'm tripping out. Now you see how everything is finally coming together, right? You must have a balanced system to utilize these proteins to your benefit when you are replicating probiotics. Because, yeah, you want to strengthen your parent cells. Parents need to strengthen, but they don't. Their children are eating them alive. Just look at the grandchildren are doing to the grandparents. Look what the kids are doing to their own parents. You, parent, have to really be fucking strong to survive your children. And your children have to be so fucking strong to survive their parents. And then they both have to be fucking strong for each other and for themselves. So you must have a balanced system to utilize those proteins to your benefit, or else when you have so much negative in your body, anything you eat and drink will turn into a negative, okay? Because it's converted. And then becomes an extreme positive. So when you have so much negative, remember, this is all the whole integers and timesing and stuff. This is pretty crazy. Exponential replication of positive or negative will kill you or develop cancer. Okay, but cancer is not a horrible thing. You have to feed it. You can't attack it with oncology or cannabis or anything else. So a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, so positive is just exponential addition, multiplication. A negative times a negative is a positive. So you can have all these negative, and you have all those antibiotics on a positive body. You'll produce growth. That's reproduction. That does turn into a positive, but it's so much reproduction that the person will get cancer. They don't like that much growth. It's too much. And they're not releasing, so they're taking that on. So there's all this energy, and then they're feeling the pain and all this other stuff, and it's taking away resources from other parts of their body. So that's why people die from cancer, because so much growth in one area or other areas, and it shuts down vital organs because it's not a balanced growth. It is like a condensed growth. And that's why you see tumors. Okay? Tumors and humps on the back of your neck and all this stuff is so much exponential growth. That some, with tumors and all that stuff, or big growths, it's isolated, so it's not completely affecting everything else. But when that starts spreading, when that energy starts spreading and starts taking away so much more resources than it's retaining, that's when cancer can kill you. That's why you have to keep feeding and releasing, feeding and releasing. You feed your body, release, feed your body, release, so you can keep building up your parent cells, so the parents can stick around and guide the children, right? When you as a parent are not taking care of yourself, and you have heart attacks and strokes and diabetes, and your kid is taking from you and taking from you and taking from you, that's no different than what goes on with cancer. The kids are taking from the parents, and then the kids shut down the whole house and shut down the whole genetic line. Just watch your friends and family and how kids and parents interact with each other. And you see the grandparents just give everything to their grandchildren and their kids. Just give everything, and they're depleting, and their kids are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And you see the distribution of energy. You see who's taking from who's retaining and who is taking and who is releasing, and all that. Oh my God. And so a positive times a positive equals a positive. So then you have all this probiotic. It'll keep replicating because there's negatives in your body. How does a probiotic replicate? Because there's some other negative that's giving that, because you're not full of all positive in your body. You do have negatives in there. So you're taking a bunch of probiotics. It's a replicate, and then your body's going to release, and it'll be armed to release. And that's understanding the integers. That's bringing math into physics, into biology. People in medical, holistic, or in the college, they're like, those two worlds don't intertwine. They're all compartmentalized in the college system, so they can't even see that logic. But it took me a couple years to get this, because let me tell you, I've been going over this and struggling with it, trying to figure out the logic behind proteins using this. I knew there was a logic, I just didn't have it. But just this, within the last couple weeks, just last couple days, I finally fucking get it. But it's taken this long to do it. It's taken me go through COVID and my co-infection to figure it out. That's what I'm saying. You got to bring on the evolution, or never stop the pain of evolution. When you finally do get exposed to something that is really aggressive, you just welcome it, man. You welcome it. People wouldn't release so much of their DNA programming if they weren't always fed antibiotics. With so many diverse antibodies stuck in their system. Okay? Because when you're taking so many antibiotics, you're keeping people stagnant, cured, yes, and juvenile. Antibiotics makes, okay. I gotta write this down. Oh, okay, give me 1 second. These are thoughts that I have to remember, because when I'm writing my book, I've also deleted a lot of stuff that I don't need. But the medical holistic system is keeping everybody juvenile because of the immature B cells that they are developing. And it keeps people cured, yes, and back to square one. And that's why they're always working from the hormones, emotional, wanting to have sex all the time with everybody, and or bullies, and or, just not taking in any kind of new information. Children have a hard time evolving, as you see. Okay, so let me see. Release and retention is exponential. Okay, so pandemics. Okay. Pandemics are all about exponential, of course, release and retention of proteins activated by acquiring energetic germs activated by ABX, which keeps the humans juvenile when used as a constant practice. When used as a constant practice against maturing. Because maturing is painful, because you're releasing and you're retaining. Okay? And so ABX makes people juvenile, immature, unevolving or devolving, and the children destroy the parents, which is you or your own parents, and destroy the parents, the parent cells, parents, grandparents. Oh my God, now you fucking get it, right? Now you get it, guys. And so yes, that's what reproduction is. When you're constantly taking a positive, like a woman, right? Or someone with a uterus, and you're taking a negative, like a man. Okay, that's just, and it can be vice versa. A man can be positive, a woman can be negative, whatever. Then, you bring those two worlds together, you get a baby. Okay. When you're taking a man and they happen to mix bodily fluids in whatever orifice it is, I don't care what it is, you're still mixing DNA together and you're going to develop a viral baby. It may not be an actual baby, right? Because there isn't that chemistry going on, but there definitely is semen and spit mixed together, and that then mutates different viruses. And that's why some people get certain evolutionary amazing diseases. It's not bad, but you gotta respond to it correctly. Monkeypox ain't bad, you just gotta respond to it correctly. AIDS isn't bad, you gotta respond to it correctly, so you stay alive. Okay, so you can develop babies, viral babies, pandemics, by just exchanging bodily fluids regardless of sexual orientation, or you can actually intend to develop a new baby called man, woman, binary, non-binary, that put together sperm and an egg, and it's negative and a positive. Okay, and they both have their distribution of negative and positives to create that conception, that energetic big bang. And so now you have a kid, an actual baby, with certain programming that you're going to have to now figure out how to plug in the holes. Not literally, but how to raise it to be a whole person. And so that's why we're now going into a world that is about diversity. Yes, they're teaching the kids a lot of different things that some people are like, whoa, holy shit. But they don't want more children. They just want more innovation, more viruses, right? And so that's why, and that's, here's the thing, when you teach young people about reproduction, they're either gonna do it because they're influenced by it and do it, or they're not gonna do it because the mystery is gone. Okay, so I learned about reproduction at a really young age, and the mystery was gone. So that's why, until I got with, the boyfriend that I had at the time, I didn't want to explore sex at a young age. It wasn't even anything that I was interested in, because I already knew what it was. It was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Okay, big fucking deal. But when someone doesn't know anything about it, and then they're curious because they don't know anything about it, or they'll watch it on TV, they're like, oh, I want to do that and all that stuff. And they don't know the understanding of the science behind it. The science just takes away all the fun, right? And so then you're not chasing after that. It's when you finally get with someone who's learned about it in a different way that wasn't told to them in a scientific way, but was told them through, like, I don't know, porn or something else. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do it on you, this type of thing with these young kids, that's what goes on. And so in religious households, when they don't learn about this stuff in a scientific way, then they'll do it in a recreational way. They'll think that they're going to buck the system in a recreational way. And so it's still a fine line. It depends on who the kid is. Some kids are more curious than others. Other kids are not. How do you introduce sexual education to people who need to know what happens, why their body feels the way it fucking does. And someone's going to eventually, let me tell you, some of these kids are so advanced that you take your kid to school and they get groped by their peers. And I've seen that on my Facebook where someone, their kid went to school and some other kid was like messing with them, literally messing with them. And the kid was like, what the hell? And so you really have to be careful nowadays when you take your kids to school. You don't know who's been taught what and how advanced some of these kids are that will go and cross boundaries. That's what's the scary thing. That's the scary thing nowadays. When you put your kid into a school system that doesn't watch everything all the time. You can't watch everything all the time. And so you have to make sure these kids are armed with information so they understand. When someone does something that you say no and you get away and you yell or some shit. But even parents don't even want to even go to that. They don't even want to talk about that. And so these poor kids are like left to figure stuff out on the fucking street, on the schoolyard. I don't know why I went on that freaking tangent. That's crazy. But yeah, that's right. It's about viruses and developing babies. And so yeah, so you can develop new viral babies through just mixing bodily fluids together, or you can develop an actual baby with sperm and egg, positive and negative, and the distribution is enough for it to create the conception. Okay, and so that's exactly how this stuff works. That's what pandemics are. It's just new evolution that not everybody can handle. Some can and some cannot. You have to respond to it so extraordinarily strategic. And you have to feel the pain. You have to release. You have to eat food. You can't diet and you can't play those games. And I see people using all these different diet packages where there's just like food planning, meal planning, where it's all in a package or a powder. And yeah, they look great. They lost a bunch of weight. But that's starving. You're starving yourself when you're doing that. But you can't tell them that because they're trying to get to a point where they're not suffering. And I get that. I understand it. I mock it. I'm sarcastic about it, but they are suffering. And when people are suffering, they'll do anything to stop the pain, to stop the bleeding. Literally, they'll do anything. And that's the world that we live in. We've allowed it to get so bad. And the New World Order knows this. That's why they're doing a whole clean of the petri dish, because it's happened before. This is not new. This is not new at all. The rising and falling of civilizations and the disbursement of people into their own prospective tribes that then turn into communities has happened before. That's why India is where it is. That's why China is where it is. That's why different countries are where they are, because they were all at one point Pangea, and then something happened, disease, cancer, whatever, viruses and climate change, then dispersed them, and then they became homogenized. And they have a culture, petri culture, and they have the allegory and the stories. And America is the last great experiment. I'm reading someone from Europe that was making fun of someone in America because of they're talking smack about the Queen, okay? And this guy from Europe or from England was saying, you Americans are so this, this, and this, and you guys are full of GUNS, and you guys are all murdering each other, and you're a bunch of religious zealots. And I'm like, oh shit, he ain't wrong. He ain't fucking wrong. I'm like, wow, looking at America through the eyes of a European and eyes of an Englishman is such a trip. I was like, oh wow, that's how a lot of the world looks at America. And I wouldn't argue with him. I would not argue with him. There are many religious zealots who love their ammunition. But we have a lot of people who are glitching. We have to have those types of things. Okay? It's okay, John. But we have to have certain things. We have so many bad experiments gone wrong in our society, and we have to protect ourselves from those type of people. We have to have the protection. And so it's like, oh my God. And so, yeah, I can completely empathize with someone in England totally just slamming someone in America for slamming their queen. I was giggling on that. I was like, I gotta read more of this. This is like popcorn material. But yeah, so America is England, Europe's last great experiment. And now you're seeing the fall of the experiment. And you're seeing the decline. You're seeing a lot of stuff. Now you have a chance, some of you have a chance to redirect. You have a chance not to be the experiment gone wrong. That you can show everybody in the world that America isn't what they think it is. That, yeah, I'm around a lot of interesting people. They're not bad, but they've been programmed. And they're suffering. And they don't know how to express the energy that is being released. Because it has to be. They're under so much pressure. Americans are under so much pressure. You see what kind of innovation that came out of America? It's some amazing fucking... You saw how much innovation came out of me? I was under a lot of fucking pressure. The last 40 years of my life, a lot of pressure. So imagine that exponentially on 300 million people who are trying to fucking survive, been undergoing experiment after experiment after experiment. And the world too, it's gonna break. It's gonna glitch. And it's gonna come out in fucked up ways. So we're sorry. I'll apologize for every American, to anyone out there in any other country. I apologize. But we're dealing with our own bullshit too. Just like you are. And we may express things in a really fucked up way, but it's not because we're bad people. It's because we're trying to survive from the experiments. And just cut us some slack. We'll figure it out. Not all of us are going to survive. But we're trying our damn best. Give us a chance. Fuck, that's crazy. All right, I'm going to go. Bye.